You know, everyone knows about the fish that doomed us all by coming to live on land, but there were animals that showed up way before them. Yeah, it turns out that the real beta testers were actually arthropods all along, specifically small primitive arachnids and myriapods that got there around the late Silurian period to the early Devonian period. But no one really talks about them because they didn't exactly lead to this along with destruction and taxes. But these guys still matter to the plot, and you gotta understand that what they pulled off must have had entire ecosystems shouting for the ref to show up, because the land back then looked worse than a nightmare, with a climate so hot that the poles had mostly melted away, and the inside of continents looked worse than the Arrakis desert from Dune. The only decent stuff was located near the coast, and these resources were the most random squad imaginable. There were a lot of small plants with very primitive stems that were struggling to get any nutrients, and then you had fungi like Prototaxides that looked like buildings at 26 feet tall. But to a small millipede-like animal, this was the golden opportunity with no predators and an infinite food source, so they needed to pull it off. So they evolved waxy, waterproof exoskeletons to deal with nasty things like evaporation, and they developed a new breathing strategy. They would use something called spiracles, which are networks of tubes that would allow air to completely diffuse into their bodies, which is a strat that would later be used by other insects and myriapods, and when there is more oxygen, you get a lot larger. And we have reason to believe that those little guys had been plotting for ages, with trace fossils showing little footprints that date back to maybe even the Ordovician period. But who knows, the fossils we have only show 1% of all the species who lived back then, so maybe there was something even more locked in than even them.